Ayatollah Khomeini, you seem to have had some success, you and your followers, in changing the government in Tehran. Do you have any feeling for how long it may be before there is an Islamic state in Iran?
It is very close. Very soon we will announce a new government.
Are we talking about days, weeks?
Probably a few days.
From CBS News, Pontchartrain, France. A spontaneous and unrehearsed news interview on Face the Nation with Ayatollah Khomeini, Iranian religious leader and also political opposition leader to the Shah of Iran. His remarks will be translated by his associate, Dr. Ibrahim Yazdi.
You have spoken out against Israel. Now, what would happen if there were another war in the Middle East? Would you put Iran's army, one of the greatest in the world, into action against Israel?
We are against Israel, and we will never help Israel. We will cut off our diplomatic relation. However, sending our army against Israel in any future probable war needs a thorough study, and at this time, I do not have anything to say on that.
Let me explore a little bit possible future relations with the United States. The Ayatollah has made some remarks about American bases interfering with Iranian independence. He has said that among those who violate human rights, there's no doubt that in the present age this is Carter, referring, I take it, to the president. And I just would like to understand whether he expects friendly or chilly relations with the United States.
If the United States government sees the continuation of the policy that they have had and do not support the Shah, which has committed so much crime and treason to the country and has appointed the illegal government, which the American government is supporting it. So if they seize that one and they start to have better relation with us and have friendly relation with us, then according to our Islamic teaching, there is no reason for us to be in animosity with them.
What is your own role in this government that is to come?
I would not have any position in the future government as such, being the president or a prime minister. And my job is not to be as such. I will be some sort of supervising their activities. I will give them guidance. And if I see some deviation or some mistake, I will remind them how to correct it, give the general guidance.
You would be, in effect, the strong man of Iran.
به این ترتیب شما مرد قوی ایران خواهید بود.
اینطور فرض کنید.
You may assume so.
The Israel-Iran conflict can be traced back decades, but to keep it recent, the hostility towards both countries followed the 1979 Iranian Revolution and expanded into covert Iranian support of Hezbollah during the South Lebanese conflict, and by 2005, developed into a full proxy regional conflict. In 2008, Iran was actively involved in supporting Hezbollah during the 2006 Lebanon war, and in parallel, began supporting Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, especially in the Gaza Strip. Israel, on the other hand, imitated a campaign to harm the Iranian nuclear program, utilizing several anti-regime militias with Iran and by assassinating Iranian nuclear physicists. Upon the onset of the Syrian civil war in 2011, the conflict escalated, and by 2018 turned into a direct Iranian-Israeli warfare. What does it mean? And what will be the future of both countries? Well, Israel, in turn, supports anti-Iranian rebel groups such as the People's Mujahideen of Iran, which is basically a Iranian political militant organization which advocates overthrowing the leadership of the Islamic Republic of Iran and installing its own government. It opposes Iranian's nuclear program as well, and maintains ties with other rivals of Iran, such as the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. The involvement of both countries in the Syrian civil war creates possibilities for direct conflict between the two countries. Israel has supported and conducted assassinations and attacks against Iranian targets directly. Israel has also conducted cyber warfare against Iran and has publicly advocated for international military action against Iran. Israel has also accused Iran of attempting to form a continuous land transport route from Iran via Iraq and Syria into Lebanon, which Israel views as a significant strategic threat. However, Iranian leaders have described Israel as an illegitimate Zionist regime and have accused Israel of being an American client state and hostile to all Muslims. Ruhollah Khomeini was critical of Israel before he became Iran's supreme leader in 1979. He was openly critical toward the Pahlavi dynasty, Iran's ties with Israel, viewing Israel as a supporter of the Pahlavi regime. Following the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Khomeini's new government adopted a policy of hostility towards Israel. Iran withdrew recognition of Israel as a state and severed all diplomatic, commercial, and other ties with Israel, referring to its government as the Zionist regime and Israel as occupied Palestine. The 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon resulted in the Palestine Liberation Organization's departure from Lebanon. The following creation of a security zone in South Lebanon have benefited Israeli allies in Lebanon and civilian Israeli population, as Galilee suffered less violent attacks by Hezbollah than previously by PLO in the 1970s. Despite this, Israeli success in eradicating PLO bases and part the withdrawal in 1985, the Israeli invasion has actually increased the severity of the conflict with local Lebanese militias and resulted in the consolidation of several local Shia Muslim movements in Lebanon, including Hezbollah and Amal, from a previously unorganized guerrilla movement in the south. Over the years, military casualties of both sides grew higher. Both parties used more modern weaponry, and Hezbollah progressed in its tactics. However, there was another problem. Israel saw the Palestinian Liberation Organization as a threat, as many countries started to sympathize with Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian problem. Israel decided to instigate the problem. According to The Interceptor in 2017, Brigadier General Yitzhak Segev, who was the Israeli military governor in Gaza in the early 1980s, Segev later told a New York Times reporter they had helped finance the Palestinian Islamic movement as a counterweight to the secularists and leftists of the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Fatah Party, led by Yasser Arafat. General Segev himself even admits to funding Hamas himself with Israeli taxpayer money that was later used to kill the same people who were funding them. In 1987, when an Israeli military truck collided with a Palestinian vehicle, killing 4 Palestinians in the car accident, the first Intifada started, and the weapons went to Yassin and Hamas. The monster grew bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, Iran supplied the militant organization Hezbollah with substantial amounts of financial training, weapons, explosives, political, diplomatic, and organizational aid while persuading Hezbollah to take action against Israel. Hezbollah's 1985 manifesto listed its 4 main goals as Israel's final departure from Lebanon as a prelude to its final obliteration. According to reports released in February 2010, Hezbollah received $400 million from Iran. By the 1990s, Hezbollah, with support from Syria and Iran, emerged as a leading group in military power, monopolizing the dictatorship of the guerrilla activity in South Lebanon. Fast forwarding to January of 2014, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Iran's nuclear program would only be set back 6 weeks as a result of its interim agreement with the international community. In one of the region's oddest pairings, Israel and the Gulf Arab states led by Saudi Arabia increasingly are finding common ground and a common political language. On their mutual dismay over the prospect of a nuclear deal in Geneva that could curb Tehran's atomic program, but leave the main elements intact, such as uranium enrichment. And in 2017, former Israeli Minister Moshe Yayan stated that we and the Arabs, the same Arabs who organized another coalition in the Six-Day War to try and destroy the Jewish state, today find themselves in the same boat with us. The Sunni Arab countries, apart from Qatar, are largely in the same boat with us, since we all see nuclear Iran as the number one threat against us all. However, was that really the case? Is it true that the puppets in the Gulf, such as Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, as well as Saudi Arabia, are only acting in accordance to get rid of a common enemy, that maybe they themselves will be the enemy to Israel and the United States, since only Israel and the United States share more than one commonality. With Saudi Arabia, there is no other commonality except for their hatred of Iran. The Iranian supporters of Syria. Iran and Syria are close strategic allies, and Iran has provided significant support for the Syrian government in the Syrian civil war, including logistical, technical, and financial support, as well as training and some combat troops. After the Arab Spring, Syria saw a rise in jihadist militants who were becoming a threat to the Syrian Defense Force as well as the Syrian army. In 2019, outgoing IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot acknowledged for the first time that Israel had indeed provided weaponry to Syrian rebel groups in the Golan Heights during the country's 7-year civil war. Up until then, Israel would say officially only that it had given humanitarian aid to Syrian opposition groups across the border, while denying or refusing to comment on reports that it had supplied them with arms as well. However, in an interview with the British Sunday Times, before ending his tenure as Chief of Staff, Eisenkot said that Israel had indeed provided light weapons to the rebel groups along the border, saying it was for self-defense. Israel's supply of weapons to these opposition groups has been reported for years, both by the Syrian army, looking to discredit the rebels as stooges of the Zionists, and by the opposition groups interested in expanding their cooperation with Israel in the fight against the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, who was never confirmed by Israeli officials. Eisenkot acknowledged that the IDF carried out hundreds of raids in Syria. In some interviews, the number given is 200. In others, it's 400, and dropped about 2,000 bombs on Iranian targets in just 2018 alone. He said, "We carried out attacks without taking responsibility or without taking the credit." Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also dropped a policy of general acknowledgement and specific ambiguity in Syria, under which Israel says that it does carry out operations in Syria along with the militants without claiming individual strikes, all in the hopes of embedding another Iranian ally. Another supporter is Hezbollah. Hezbollah has grown to an organization with seats in the Lebanese government, a radio and satellite division station, and programs for social development and large-scale military deployment of fighters beyond Lebanon's borders. Hezbollah has been a major combatant in the Syrian civil war, and Hezbollah has also fought against Israel, defeating the IDF in the 2006 Lebanon war. Sudan is also a friend and an ally to Iran. Sudan and Iran signed a military cooperation agreement in 2008. The agreement was signed by Iran's defense minister, Mustafa Mohammad Najjar, and his Sudanese counterpart, Abdul Rahim Mohammed Hussein. These are the allies in the fight against Israel. However, Israel has more formidable allies, with its main supporter being the United States. Israel's closest military ally, which has a long history of violence against Iran, including the August 1953 overthrow of the Mohammad Mossadegh government by US and UK covert operatives, including the CIA, as well as being the backing and supporter of the authoritarian rule of Rabbi Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. The US also provided major military and other support to Saddam Hussein's Iraq for decades after Iraq attacked Iran. In 1988, the United States launched Operation Praying Mantis against Iran, the largest American naval combat operation since World War II. The United States has military bases that virtually encircle Iran, approximately over 30. Another ally is Saudi Arabia. While Iran is the world's main Shia Muslim-led power, Saudi Arabia sees itself as the leading Sunni Muslim power. In what has been described as a Cold War between the two, waged on multiple levels over geopolitical, economic, and sectarian influence in pursuit of regional hegemony, has been a major feature of Western Asia since 1979. American support for Saudi Arabia and its allies, as well as Russian and Chinese support for Iran and its allies, have drawn comparisons to the dynamics of the Cold War era and the proxy conflict, which has been characterized as a front in what Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has referred to as the new Cold War. Israel and Saudi Arabia do not have any official diplomatic relations. However, news reports have indicated extensive behind-the-scenes diplomatic and intelligence cooperation between the countries in pursuit of mutual goals against the regional enemy, Iran. And another ally is the People's Mujahideen of Iran. U.S. officials confirmed that the MEK was financed, trained, and armed by Israel in killing Iranian nuclear scientists. And according to a New Yorker report, members of the Mujahideen al-Khalq, the MEK, received training in the United States and Israel, funding for their operations against the Iranian government for years. The MEK aligning with Israel is generally regarded as opportunism on the part of the former rather than any genuine partnership. However, the local context has changed considerably for Israel. The Arab Spring has shattered all assumptions and threatens decades-old alliances. Symbolic but meaningful gains by the Palestinians at the United Nations have compounded Israel's sense of powerlessness and uncertainty. As Palestinian gains ground on the world stage and old Arab allies become strangely indecipherable, the more tangible issue of Iran makes for an alluring diversion and a reassertion of primacy. Some Arab Sunni leaders are deeply fearful of Iran's regional ambitions and may be giving quiet nods of approval to a strike that would hobble the Shia giant across the Gulf, even from Israel. Moreover, Israel may act while the United States is still in Iraq. In Iranian retaliation against American targets, there could be a reluctant U.S. indirectly into war, a salient Israeli objective. Even with heavy lobbying inside the United States, the Pentagon has reservations. But despite these calculations, an attack on Iran will come at a terrible cost of lives and destruction on both sides. Those who claim Iran is a paper tiger will not be in the direct line of fire in Iran, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel. The damage will not just be material. The positive spirit of the Arab revolutions, focused on practical but not ideological goals, will be swept away in the aftershocks. Indeed, any future Iranian anti-regime protest movement will be trumped by national anger against the attack. The great irony is this: there will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Instead of preemption and prevention, the attack will ensure decades of Iranian search for a nuclear option aimed at attacking Israel in defense. In other words, Israel will have traded the mere possibility of an attack for its certainty. Time will tell how far we have gone down the rabbit hole regarding the Iranian-Israeli proxy conflict, and will the United States once again come as the Israeli shield as well as its sword while the Israelis themselves sit back and watch a destruction of the American economy and spirit, as well as another Arab country in Iran.